Hello there. I think I've just about now finished my illustrations on the Wheel of Life on the wall, you know, for each archetype in each section. So I just wanted to just share them, see what people think. So first of all, you got the Magician. It changed as I went around the circle, you know, and I started off thinking, well, look, I'll just do clouds for water, and then like a little fire thing for fire to just have it that way. And so I started off with the Magician. In the end, I came back and put in this sun here. So it's kind of like it's air and light and all that sort of thing. Yeah. Moved on to Patriarch, and there I darkened the cloud and put the water drops in. Water drops then became my symbol for water at that point. Yeah. And later on I added the snowflakes, you know, because I thought that'd be good to fill in a bit more of it. So that's the Patriarch, and I quite like the fact that the cloud seems like distant and very high, because that's exactly what he would be. The Magician, the cloud shouldn't be so high, maybe, but it's kind of okay. It works all right, you know. The nymph or child or angel, I put in these water drops here, and I made them kind of very subtle, which I'm happy with. They're almost invisible, to be truthful, but that's okay, because it's like the child is easily overlooked. The nymph is easily overlooked, not recognized, you know, because it's a subtle state. It's a very dreamy state. And then I did these kind of cirrus clouds, which again are very kind of like mist-like and wafty. Then I moved on to the enchantress. And then things started to change. Like the water droplets became much more stylized in a sense, yeah, but still clearly water drops. And then I wanted to sort of like show this overlap of water and land, or watery land, like swamps, marshes, that sort of thing. So I did this kind of marshland design here, and then afterwards I put the moon in over it, so you could definitely see. There's the moon there, which is very much associated with the enchantress, and then there's the reflection of the moon in the water. Now I came down to actress, and this is when things really started to change, because I thought actress needs something special. She's not going to want just ordinary stuff, you know. So I made the drops of wine, basically. So it's still fluid, it's still watery, but it's wine. Yeah, so I thought that's going to suit her better. And for the fire, I wanted to give her something that seemed more dramatic, more symbolic, so it's a single candle flame. So I thought that would probably suit her. Coming down to the Fool, well, the Fool, we had all of this fire flaring up here, so the fire is really kind of like going all over the place, which I wanted it to. And then for the water, I wanted the water to go in the opposite direction, so it's like it's like spurting upwards, the water. And of course, then I realized also this also kind of like could represent male ejaculation, which is very appropriate for the Fool. It's kind of like part of his productivity, his profligacy, if you like, or what have you. He's just like that, producing millions of sperm, just throwing them out. Yeah. So that was that. It's also water, but I thought it works as sperm. And then I thought, actually, this could actually work as menstrual blood then, couldn't it, as well, if you want to kind of go down that route. Anyway, there's this here. So that's the Fool. So again, going different, yeah. Then I got to the Jester, and I thought, what for Jester? And I knew that for Jester, it had to start becoming somehow more symbolic. I don't know why. It needs to become more symbolic. So there's, again, this fire, and I tried to draw the fire as if it was sort of like the background starting to burn and starting to flame, starting to break through the background. So there's fire everywhere. But then also, I wanted the bellows to represent air that feeds fire, and the idea of hot air as well. And then I put the ace of clubs in there. Not ace of clubs, ace of spades in there, which I thought was a good representation for the tricksiness of fire as well, yeah, and the sense of chance and hazard. But of course, it's not all negative. It's also a positive thing. It's like in the tarot, the Ace of Swords is like, yes, it can represent injury and death. It can also represent birth. Yeah. So it's just a very decisive breaking up kind of energy, really. It does break things up and innovates. Yeah. But that was the Jester for me. Then I moved on to the Warrior. The Warrior is pretty orthodox, really. A volcano erupting. So that's kind of like a pretty, like I said, a pretty orthodox representation of the warrior, really. The volcano bursting forth. Hearth priestess, queen, slave. Here it was very simple. It's fire, but it's contained within something which puts it to use as well. And it's a hearth. So it's the center of the home in a sense. So again, it's something which you have to tend and keep going and things like this. So it's not like this fire. It's a fire which is seems almost more human, if you know what I mean, in some ways. But it's I wanted to have that sense of the productive, the domestic, the homely, or homey in the American sense. And just fiery, really. Fiery, but fiery within. Warmth. Like what's used to warm the whole house, to bake the bread, to, to make things, to produce things. So the Hearth Priestess was that. This also represents the fire in the body, of course, as well. That sort of like that vital fire in the body as well. Then moving up to Mother Nature, and then, well, I wanted to, now we're moving back to a different sense of things. Just as with the Enchantress, it was kind of like a marshland. With Mother Nature, it's more like a kind of foresty kind of area. I knew, though, that I wanted to do this as an ancient forest, like a primeval forest. So you've got these enormous ferns, and you've got these kind of palm type trees, these kind of cycad type trees, and then you've got the earth, and then these lines represent the rain falling. So it's actually rain falling in sheets. So the dominant thing is earth, but it's got lots of water coming in too, yeah, and it's got this sense of something very old and ancient and before human beings as well. So that was Mother Nature. Moving up to the matriarch, I did this basically as desert, really, but it's a desert of dust, desert of arid earth and stuff. So it's not necessarily sand. It's kind of like, but it is a desert, like a high desert, really, like high desert, I guess. So that was the matriarch, and then moving up to the sage. I wanted to do the sense of the mountaintop. I wanted to bring in the cloud again to represent air, but I knew that this was the image I wanted, which is a lenticular cloud over the top of a mountain, which almost looks like a bit like a UFO, which I think is kind of appropriate because there's something almost alien-like about the sage, kind of like, the egghead, the impassive egghead. So it's sort of like, so there we go. It's kind of like, it's, he's like the alien of nature. And I just wanted the mountaintop and this UFO-like cloud on top of it. So that was it, really. That's the whole thing that I actually did. So there you go. Now another thing here is that the hemispheres and the quarters are all quite distinct. They really are. It's funny. Like this down here, this here seems very, very cultural, very human, very cultural human, if you know what I mean. And this gets very natural again, and then here it's very natural again, and then down here again it gets more personal. Yeah, it gets very much more personal, much more emotional, dramatic. here, this jester, this is really the linchpin of civilization, though, because it produces all our novelty, produces all of our novelty, all of our innovation. It comes basically from the impulse of the jester combined with the impulse of the magician, which I think is very interesting. And this is very often, obviously, as this very primordial, primeval, natural axis, yeah. And this is this almost a sort of like that very civilization human sort of axis, if you see what I mean. It's human in the sense of what makes humans different, in a way, I think, in some senses. To an extent, anyway, that may be overstated, to be truthful, because animals do use tools in their own way, like, you know, to break open shells and stuff. The other side is what's the other side? Well, this side seems a lot more. This side seems more abstracted and dreamy in a way. Abstracted. This side seems more concrete, which is what you'd expect really. This side is more contemplative or reflective. This side is more involved. So there are all sorts of funny things you could see just by looking at it and exploring it.